Tom was alone on the green planet called Farah. He was not a soldier. He was not a hero. He was a simple human scout. His job was to check if the planet was safe for humans to live. He stayed in a small camp deep in the forest. Trees were tall and thick. Strange birds flew in the sky. The air smelled like wet earth and sweet fruit. Every morning, Tom checked his gear, charged his tools, and ate his rations. The rations were simple protein bars, dried fruit, and water. Not tasty, but enough to keep him strong. He had to stay healthy. He still had 10 days left before the ship came back to take him home. But one morning, Tom woke up feeling something was wrong. His tent was quiet. His tools were untouched. But when he looked in his supply box, he froze. His rations were gone. Not all of them, but most of the food packs were missing. Only two were left. Tom's face turned cold. He had sealed the box last night. No storm came. No animals made noise. There were no bite marks or scratch signs. But something had opened the lid and taken the food. Tom looked around the camp. He saw footprints near the supply box. They were light and narrow. Not heavy like boots. Not round like forest animals. These prints were small, with long toes and sharp claws. They led away from the camp and into the trees. Tom picked up his scanner. But the power was low. He turned it off to save energy. Then he picked up his spear. It was not a real weapon, just a strong stick with a sharp end. He had made it himself to hunt small creatures. Now it would have to do. He followed the tracks. The forest was quiet. The only sound was the wind moving the leaves. Birds flew high above, but none came close. Tom moved carefully, watching every step. After 20 minutes, he saw something. A shadow moved behind the trees, quick and smooth. Tom stopped and held his breath. Then he saw her. She stood on a rock, holding one of his ration packs. She looked like a girl, but not fully human. Her skin was soft gray with faint stripes. Her ears were pointed like a cat's. A long tail moved behind her. Her eyes were golden and sharp. She looked young but wild. She sniffed the pack and tore. It opened with her teeth. She ate fast, like someone who had not eaten in days. Then she looked up and saw Tom. For a moment, they both stared. Tom raised his hand, not to fight, just to show he had no weapon ready. He opened his mouth to speak, but the alien girl took a step back. She hissed and jumped off the rock. "Wait," Tom said. But she was fast. She ran into the forest. Her tail swung behind her. She moved between trees like a shadow. Tom ran after her. Branches hit his arms. Roots pulled at his boots. The forest was thick and wild. The girl was faster. Tom could barely see her. She climbed over a fallen tree and vanished into the leaves. After 10 minutes, Tom stopped. His breath was heavy. His shirt was wet with sweat. He looked around but saw nothing. Just trees, rocks, and silence. He sat down on a log and dropped his spear. He was not angry. He was surprised. She was not just an animal. She was smart. She knew how to open boxes. She chose what food to take. She didn't attack. She didn't hurt anything. Tom drank some water and looked at the trees again. Somewhere out there, the cat girl was watching him. He felt it. That night, Tom sat by the fire and ate one of the 2 rations left. He thought about the girl. Who was she? Was she alone? Did she live in the forest? Was she hungry or just curious? He didn't sleep well. Every sound made him sit up. He kept his tools close and the fire burning. In the morning, he had an idea. He took a ration pack and placed it on a flat rock near the edge of his camp. Then he stepped back and waited. He worked on his scanner and checked the trees, but his eyes always came back to that rock. Hours passed. The sun moved across the sky. Then, just before sunset, the ration was gone. No sound, no footprints. But the food had been taken. Tom smiled. The girl had come back. She was not just a thief. She was curious. Maybe she was waiting to see what he would do. Tom stood by the rock and looked at the trees. "All right," he said. "You stole my rations. I hope you like them." There was no answer, but he felt eyes on him again. That night, He placed another ration on the rock and waited. The next morning, Tom stepped out of his tent and checked the rock. The ration was gone again. But this time, something was different. A small red fruit was placed on the rock where the pack had been. Tom picked it up and looked at it closely. It was round, smooth, and smelled sweet. He had seen it on trees before, but never touched it. His scanner had said the fruit was safe, but he had not tried it. Now it felt like a message. Tom smiled. The cat girl had taken his food, but she had left something in return. He held the fruit in his hand and looked into the forest. "Are we trading now?" he asked the trees. Of course, there was no answer, but again, he felt that strange feeling like someone was watching. Tom sat down and bit the fruit. The taste was sharp and sweet. It filled his mouth with juice. It was better than any ration bar. After eating, he packed his gear and took his spear. This time, he was not hunting animals. He wanted to find the girl again. He moved slowly into the woods, watching for tracks. The ground was soft from the morning dew. After a few minutes, he found fresh footprints. They were like the ones from before, small, long toes, sharp claws. He followed them deeper into the trees. The forest was quiet, but Tom stayed alert. He stepped over roots and ducked under branches. Light shined through the leaves, making strange shadows on the ground. Every time the wind moved, he stopped and listened. Suddenly, he saw movement ahead. The cat girl stood near a tree. She was crouched down, picking something from the ground. Her ears twitched. Her tail flicked side to side. She turned and saw him. For a second, they both froze. Then she ran. Tom ran too. He jumped over rocks and pushed past branches. The girl was fast, but not too far ahead. She didn't run in a straight line. She climbed a tree, jumped across to another, then dropped down and sprinted again. Tom tried to follow, but she was quicker. Still, he didn't stop. He saw her leap across a stream. She turned her head to look back, then dashed into the trees. Tom crossed the stream and kept going. His boots splashed in the water. He was getting tired, but he didn't stop. He wanted to know more. He wanted to talk to her. If she could talk. After 20 more minutes, the chase ended. Tom reached a small clearing and looked around. The girl was nowhere in sight. He turned in a circle, trying to find tracks. Then he looked up. She was sitting on a thick branch, high above, legs crossed. Her tail hung down. She was holding the last ration pack. She looked calm, not scared. Tom raised a hand. Breathing hard. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said. "I just want to talk." She tilted her head. Her ears moved a little, like she was listening. Then she tore open the pack and started eating. Her golden eyes stayed on him the whole time. Tom sat down on a rock and dropped his spear. "I guess you don't understand me," he said. "But you're smart. I can see that." She finished eating and threw the empty wrapper down. It landed near Tom's boot. She stood up on the branch and leapt down. Tom stood quickly, ready to move back if needed. But she didn't attack. She stayed a few steps away, crouching low with one hand on the ground. Her nose moved like she was smelling him. Then she pointed to his spear, then pointed to the forest. Her fingers made a sharp motion, like claws. Then she held her hand up and made a slashing move through the air. Tom blinked. "You want to hunt?" he asked. She didn't speak, but made the claw motion again. Then she pointed at the trees and waited. Tom picked up his spear slowly. The cat girl turned and ran into the forest again, but this time not as fast. Tom followed her. She moved smoothly, like she knew every rock and branch. Tom had to keep his eyes open to stay close. After a short while, she stopped and dropped to one knee. She pointed through the bushes. Tom crouched beside her. Through the leaves, he saw a large creature drinking from a pool. It had long legs and thick brown fur. Its head looked like a cross between a deer and a lizard. It had no horns, but its tail was sharp like a whip. The cat girl picked up a stone and threw it far to the left. The animal looked toward the sound and took a few steps away from the water. The girl nodded at Tom, then moved to the right side of the pool. Tom moved left. They were surrounding it. Tom stepped carefully. trying not to snap any branches. When he was close, the girl made a quick sound. It was like a soft click. The animal turned toward her. Tom rushed forward and threw his spear. It hit the creature in the side. It let out a loud cry and ran, but only for a short distance. It slowed, then fell. Tom breathed hard. The girl stood over the fallen creature. She looked at Tom with a strange expression. Not a smile, but not anger either. It was something else. Respect. She placed her hand on the beast, then looked up at him and nodded. Tom nodded back. Together, they dragged the animal away from the water. The hunt was over, and something had begun. The forest was quiet after the hunt. Only the sound of birds echoed in the trees. Tom and the cat girl dragged the animal to a dry spot near the rocks. Its fur was thick and heavy. The creature had strong legs and sharp claws, but now it was still. Tom sat down on the ground, tired but happy. His hands were dirty. His shirt was wet with sweat. He had never hunted something that big before. The cat girl crouched beside him and pulled out a small knife tied to her leg. The blade looked old but sharp. She began to cut the creature's skin with quick, careful hands. Tom watched her. She moved like she had done this many times before. She did not waste time. She took the good meat and wrapped it in leaves. She left the bones and bad parts behind. When she finished, she handed a small piece of meat to Tom. He took it and nodded. She nodded back. They returned to Tom's camp before nightfall. The sun was low in the sky, and the trees turned orange from the light. The fire at his camp was still burning. The girl sat across from it while Tom pulled out his tools. He opened a small heat stick and placed the meat on a flat rock near the fire. It was not a real stove, but it worked as the meat sizzled. The smell filled the air. The girl sniffed and leaned forward. Her eyes followed the steam rising from the meat. "You like cooked food?" Tom asked. She didn't answer, but her ears twitched. Tom gave her a cooked piece. She took it slowly and chewed with care. Then she looked at him and gave a short nod. That was all he needed. From that day, something changed between them. They did not speak, but they understood each other. Tom gave her a name. He called her Minna. It was simple and easy to say. He said it once while pointing at her. Minna. She looked confused at first. Then she touched her chest and repeated, Minna. Tom smiled. That was enough. Minna taught Tom how to move without sound. She showed him how to walk through leaves without making noise. She pressed his foot and pointed at the ground, teaching him where to step. She also taught him how to see tracks he never noticed before: small bent grass, broken leaves, claw marks on bark. Tom learned fast. He had no choice. The forest was full of dangerous creatures. Some had long teeth, others moved underground. One day, he almost stepped into a trap hole made by a spiked worm. Minna pulled him back just in time. In return, Tom gave her useful tools. He showed her his heat sticks. He gave her a small scanner that beeped when danger was near. He taught her how to use his flashlight, and she laughed when the light made the trees glow. She brought him fruits, roots, and herbs. Some healed wounds, some helped with sleep. One day, she gave him blue flowers and crushed them in her hand. The juice burned his nose. She smiled and smeared the juice on a spear tip. Tom understood. It was poison. He marked one of his spears. For hunting large animals, they started hunting together every morning. Minna led the way. Tom followed with quiet steps. Sometimes they split and moved around the prey from both sides. Minna always made the signal with her hand. Then the strike came fast and clean. They were a team. One day, a heavy rain came. The sky turned dark and water poured from the clouds. Tom's tent leaked from one side. He worked fast to cover it with strong leaves. Minna sat under a tree and waited. After the rain stopped, they both sat near the fire. Minna picked up a stick and drew a shape in the dirt. It looked like a tall tree with a strange symbol next to it. Tom tilted his head. What is that? He asked. Minna pointed toward the deep forest, then at the symbol. Her finger moved in a circle. She made a motion like holding something up, then pointed at her chest. Tom tried to guess. You're home. She didn't answer. Instead, She stood and walked toward the trees. Tom stood too. You want me to come? She waited and looked back. He followed. They walked for hours. The trees grew taller. The light grew dim. Strange sounds filled the air. But Minna stayed calm. Tom stayed close behind her. At last, they stopped near a tree that was larger than any Tom had ever seen. Its trunk was wide and covered with blue moss. Vines hung from its branches. At the base of the tree was a small door made of wood and bones. Minna tapped the door twice. No answer. She tapped again, softer, still. No answer. Then she stepped back and looked at Tom. He waited. He knew this place meant something. Minna knelt and placed her hand on the dirt. She looked down, then stood again. She turned and walked away without saying a word. Tom followed her back to camp. That night, she was quiet. She sat by the fire but didn't eat much. She looked at the stars and closed her eyes. Tom didn't ask questions. He didn't need answers. He knew she had tried to show him something important. He placed a blanket near the fire for her. She looked at it, then at him, and nodded. Then she curled up and rested. Tom stayed awake a little longer. He didn't feel alone anymore. Days passed, and the bond between Tom and Minna grew stronger. They still did not speak the same language, but their hands, eyes, and actions said more than words. In the morning, they hunted together. At night, they shared food and sat near the fire. The forest no longer felt dangerous to Tom. It felt alive, but no longer threatening. Minna had become part of his life, and he had become part of hers. Tom learned quickly from her. She showed him how to make traps using strong vines and sharp sticks. She taught him how to mark trees with signs so they would not get lost. She pointed out safe plants and warned him away from the ones that looked pretty but were deadly. When they walked through the forest, she always moved ahead, her ears turning at every sound, her eyes sharp and clear. One morning, Tom woke to find Minna already awake. She was holding a broken blade in her hand. It was curved and made from dark metal. A crack ran through the center. She looked at him and held it out. Tom took it and examined it. The metal was strange, not like anything humans used. It looked strong but light. He tapped it gently. It made a soft ring. Minna pointed at the crack, then pointed at Tom's repair kit. Tom nodded. He placed the blade on a flat rock and opened his tools. He cleaned the crack and used a bonding gel. From his pack, it was a small fix, not perfect, but strong enough to hold the blade together. When he handed it back, Minna stared at it for a while, then gave a quiet nod. Later that day, while walking near the river, they saw a creature drinking from the water. It was large, with smooth green skin and horns shaped like branches. Tom raised his spear, but Minna placed her hand on his arm. She shook her head. She pointed at the creature, then at the sky. Her fingers made a rising motion. Tom watched the creature. It was old. Its legs were thin. It drank slowly and moved without fear. Minna was showing him something. Not every animal needed to be hunted. Some needed to be left in peace. Tom lowered his spear. As they turned away, Minna picked a small flower from the ground and handed it to Tom. He didn't know the meaning, but he smiled and placed it behind his ear. Minna laughed, the first time he had ever heard her laugh. It was a soft sound, almost like a purr. Back at camp, Tom worked on fixing his scanner. The signal was still weak. He checked the battery. It was low but not empty. He tried to send a ping to the orbit ship, but nothing came back. The storm from last week might have damaged the signal line. He decided to try again later. That night, while they sat near the fire, Minna took out a string made from dry vines. She began to weave something with her fingers. Tom watched as her hands moved quickly. In just a few minutes, she had made a small net. She tossed it to him. He held it in his hands and looked up at her. "A gift?" he asked. She nodded once. Tom smiled and placed the net in his pack. Then he picked up a small metal badge from his uniform. It had a blue star and a number. He removed it and handed it to her. Minna took it, turned it over, then held it close. She placed it in a pouch tied to her belt. For a long time, they said nothing. Trust had grown between them, Slowly but clearly, they still lived into different worlds, but they had built a small bridge between them. One evening, Tom heard strange sounds in the sky. He looked up and saw lights. They moved fast, faster than birds. The shape was not natural. It was a ship, but not a human one. It passed over the forest and vanished beyond the trees. Tom stood up and checked his scanner. It showed a new signal, strong and unknown. He looked at Minna. She was already standing, her eyes narrow. She pointed at the sky and made a sharp motion downward. Her body was tense. Tom understood. Something new had arrived, something not from this planet, and not from her people. The next day, the forest changed. Birds stopped singing. Small animals stayed hidden. Even the wind felt different. Tom and Minna walked in silence. Every noise made them stop. They saw broken branches, scorched plants, and strange marks in the dirt. A machine had passed through. It had heavy wheels and left a black trail. Minna touched the marks and hissed. She grabbed her blade and looked at Tom. Tom checked his scanner. The signal was moving. It was heading toward the center of the forest. That night, Minna did not sleep. She stood near the trees and watched the darkness. Her tail moved slowly. Tom sat by the fire and sharpened his spear. The piece they had built was about to break. Tom looked at Minna. "Whatever comes, we face it together," he said. She didn't answer with words. She simply placed her hand on his shoulder and gave a short nod. For now, the forest was quiet again. But something was coming, something that would test their bond and their trust. The next morning, the air felt heavy. The wind had no sound. Even the leaves stayed still. Tom and Minna packed quickly. They left nothing behind at the camp. Tom placed his scanner in his bag. Minna sharpened her blade. They both knew something dangerous had landed nearby. They moved quietly through the trees. Minna led the way. Her body stayed low, and her ears moved left and right. Tom followed behind with his spear ready. They passed broken plants and crushed bushes. Something large had moved through this part of the forest. Tracks in the dirt showed wide circles, like wheels. The ground was black where heat had burned it. Tom stopped when he saw metal pieces near a rock. They were silver with sharp edges and blinking lights. He picked one up. It was still warm. The piece came from a machine, not from nature. Minna took it from his hand, smelled it, then tossed it away. She pointed forward and made a flat hand sign. Tom had seen that sign before. It meant stay low and move slow. They crawled over a hill and looked down. A large machine stood in the middle of a clearing. It had legs like a spider and a body like a tank. Metal arms moved side to side, cutting trees and scanning the ground. The flying drones hovered above it. They made no sound, but red lights flashed from their eyes. Tom narrowed his eyes. The machine was not from Earth. It was also not part of Minna's world. This was something else, a third force, unwelcome, unknown. Minna reached into her pouch and took out a small ball wrapped in cloth. She opened it and showed Tom sharp black seeds. She made a throwing motion, then pointed at the machine's legs. Tom nodded. He checked his spear and heat stick. Then he looked at the trees. He had an idea. They waited until the drones moved to the other side of the clearing. Then they ran. Minna moved like the wind, silent and fast. She tossed the seeds near the machine's feet. The seeds stuck to the ground and broke open. A thick green smoke rose. The machine stopped moving. Its red lights blinked. Tom grabbed a thick vine and climbed up a tree. From there, he jumped to another branch and then to a tall rock. He aimed his heat stick and fired it at the base of the machine. The blast hit metal and caused a small spark. Smoke came out from one side. The machine turned and fired a flash beam toward the trees. The beam hit the ground and turned the grass to ash. Tom dropped from the rock and rolled behind a log. The heat from the blast had burned his sleeve, but he was not hurt. Minna came from the side and threw a sharp stone at one of the drones. It hit hard and knocked the drone to the ground. The other drone turned and chased her. She ran through the trees, jumping and sliding like an animal. The drone fired a dart, but it missed. Tom ran to the broken drone and pulled out its eye. The small red light blinked once and went out. He placed it in his bag. The big machine turned again and started moving toward the center of the forest. Its legs crushed everything in its path. Tom and Minna met behind a thick tree. They were both breathing fast. Tom pointed toward the machine. "We can't let it reach the river," he said. "If it reaches water, it will spread. It might send a signal." Minna did not need words. She nodded once and pulled out a glowing blue stone from her pouch. Tom had seen it once before. It was a crystal found deep under the forest. It had power. The crystal could heat or freeze, depending on how it was cracked. Minna held the crystal in both hands and hit it with her blade. It broke into 2 sharp pieces. Steam rose from the crack. She placed one in a small leather bag and tied it to a long vine. Tom understood the plan. They waited again until the machine passed under a tree with long branches. Minna climbed it and tied the crystal bag to a low vine. Tom moved to the other side and made a loud noise by hitting 2 rocks together. The machine turned toward the sound. It stepped under the vine. Minna pulled hard. The crystal bag dropped and broke on top of the machine. A burst of blue light covered the metal body. The heat melted the top layer. Sparks flew out. The machine shook and fired in every direction. Trees caught fire. One of its legs bent and snapped. It fell to the ground and rolled onto its side. Tom rushed forward and threw his spear into a weak spot on the side. The spear went deep. Steam burst out. The machine gave a final spark and stopped moving. Silence returned. Minna climbed down and stood beside Tom. They looked at the machine. It was still smoking, but it was dead. Tom checked his scanner. The strong signal was gone. They sat on a log and rested. Minna gave him water from her pouch. He took a drink and passed it back. The danger was over for now, but both of them knew this was only the beginning. If one machine had landed, others could follow. Minna pointed at the sky and made a spinning motion with her finger. Tom nodded. More will come. But now they were ready. Together. The forest was tense after the battle. Tom and Minna knew the machines could return. The quiet was only a pause, not the end. They needed a plan. They needed to be ready. Minna moved like a shadow among the trees. She was fast, quiet, and skilled. Tom followed, carrying his spear and scanner. Together, they became hunters of a new kind. They set traps all over the forest. Minna showed Tom how to use vines to make nets that could catch even the fastest machines. They placed sharp stones and hidden pits where the machines walked. Tom learned how to hide in the trees and move without sound. One night, the drones returned. They flew low, their red lights glowing in the dark. Minna was already waiting in the branches. Tom was hidden behind a thick tree. The drones moved slowly. Scanning the ground for movement. Minna dropped from the tree and threw a vine net over one drone. It caught the machine tightly. The drone beeped and tried to fly away, but the net held it fast. Tom ran forward and smashed the drone's eye with his spear. The red light blinked and went out. The drone fell to the ground. The other drone turned and fired a small dart at Minna. She jumped back just in time. The dart hit a tree and broke. Tom ran after the drone and threw his spear. The spear hit the wing and the drone crashed into the bushes. Minna and Tom moved quickly. They gathered the broken parts and destroyed the drones so they could not be used again, but the big machine was still out there. Tom's scanner showed a signal. It was moving closer. They had to find it before it could cause more damage. Minna led Tom through narrow paths and thick bushes. She moved with sure steps. Tom followed, trusting her completely. Suddenly, Minna stopped. She held up her hand. They heard a low rumble. The machine was near. They looked through the trees. The large spider-like machine was walking carefully. Its metal legs crushed plants and rocks. It scanned the ground with bright lights. Minna signaled. To Tom, she pointed at the machine's legs and made a cutting motion with her hand. Tom understood. He picked up a heavy branch and broke it into sharp pieces. Minna had already prepared her poisoned spear. They moved closer. Minna threw her poisoned spear at the machine's front leg. It hit and the machine slowed down. Steam and smoke came from the joint. Tom threw his spear at another leg. It hit and Cracked a piece of metal. The machine raised its arms and fired a blast of light. The blast hit a tree and set it on fire. Tom and Minna ran behind rocks to avoid the heat. Minna pulled out one of the blue crystals. She cracked it hard and threw it at the machine's body. The crystal exploded with cold steam. The metal of the machine froze and cracked. The machine shook but did not stop. Tom shouted, "We need to finish this now." Minna nodded and ran toward the machine. She climbed on its leg like a cat climbing a tree. Tom covered her by throwing stones and firing his heat stick. Minna reached the top of the machine and found a weak spot near its head. She pulled out a sharp knife and cut a wire. The machine stopped moving. Tom climbed up and helped Minna. They both looked inside the machine. It was empty except for wires and lights. Minna smiled. "We did it," Tom smiled back. "Together." After the fight, they returned to camp. Their clothes were dirty and their bodies were tired. But their spirits were strong. They knew they had won this battle. But the war was not over. The forest was still full of secrets, and the stars above held many more dangers. For now, Tom and Minna were ready, together. They could face anything. The forest was calm again. The machines had gone, and the danger seemed to disappear with them. Tom and Minna sat near the fire, tired but happy. The stars shone bright in the clear sky. Tom looked at Minna and smiled. She looked back with her golden eyes, soft and calm. For the first time, Tom felt like he was home. Not in a big city or a ship, but here, in the forest with Minna. Days passed, and Tom did not call his team back. He knew they would come one day, but for now, he wanted to stay. Minna took him deeper into the forest. She showed him places he never saw before. Hidden caves with shining stones, rivers with clear water, and fields full of strange plants. One day, she led him to her people. They lived in a village high in the trees. Houses were built on thick branches, made of wood and leaves. Small bridges connected the homes. Lights glowed softly at night. The alien cat people were different but kind. They looked at Tom with curiosity. Minna stood beside him, proud and strong. At first, the village was quiet. The cat people watched Tom carefully. He did not speak their language, and they did not speak his. But Minna helped. She showed them that Tom was a friend. She pointed at him and said his name. Then she pointed at herself slowly. The cat people smiled and welcomed Tom. He stayed with them and learned their ways. They taught him how to climb the tallest trees, how to listen to the wind and understand its messages, how to live with the forest, not against it. Tom shared his knowledge too. He taught the cat people how to use simple tools, how to make fire safer, how to prepare food better. Together, they built a small home near the village. It was part wood, part metal, a place for Tom and Minna. One evening, as the sun set, Tom and Minna sat outside their home. The sky was painted orange and pink. Tom looked at Minna and said, "Thank you." She smiled softly, her tail curling around her legs. He knew this was the start of a new life, a life with friends, with adventure, and with someone who once stole his rations but gave him so much more. The forest was no longer a place of fear. It was a place of hope. And together, Tom and Minna would protect it.